Hey, what's going on, everyone? In this video, we are looking at the Wednesday afternoon showdown between the Ravens and the Steelers. This one's taking place in Pittsburgh. This game has already been moved 3 times, so hopefully they do not decide to move it again. But if this does end up holding up, then we'll have Wednesday afternoon football, which will be fun. So let's get into it. Hopefully, you guys had some success on the showdown yesterday. Did not have much success personally. Had Lockett instead of Metcalf, which obviously sucked. And then was right that Carson Wentz was going to play a lot and didn't think Hurts would get involved that much. But Carson Wentz still was really bad in the first half. He still put up some fantasy points, but they didn't even have a first down until like 4 minutes left in the second half, which was just super embarrassing. But let's see about this Wednesday night or Wednesday afternoon showdown. We have a Baltimore Ravens team which is super banged up. The Steelers are pretty healthy. They've been waiting for this. They're missing their running back, but other than that, they're pretty solid on the offensive end. They're currently favored by 10 points, so we've got some things to talk about and discuss on the slate. So let's get into it. As always, appreciate if you guys hit the like button on the video, subscribe if you have not already, and yeah, let's get into it. So first thing to talk about is the Baltimore Ravens team because they're so banged up. So Robert Griffin III is in line to start this game because Lamar Jackson still is on the COVID-19 list. So RG3 checks in at $8,400 in the flex. Hasn't gotten much playing time, obviously, in the last couple years. He's played in some like garbage time situations last season for the Ravens. Hasn't really got that much action at all this year. But back when he was with Washington before he got hurt, he was looking like a pretty solid quarterback. But injuries have kind of derailed his career, but he's getting a shot. It's a really tough matchup and an awful spot against Pittsburgh, but 8,400 for RG3 is definitely going to be a piece I think that you can look to. And then looking at all the injuries, Dobbins and Ingram, there's a chance both of them can be good to go for this game. Both are eligible to be activated before Wednesday's game, so that would be a big boost. But they're going to be missing Mark Andrews, and they already lost Nick Boyle for the season, so they are super banged up. They literally have no tight ends right now on the active roster. That's definitely going to change by tomorrow. They're probably going to call up Tomlinson, I would assume, or maybe call up Luke Wilson, who played some snaps last week. But Tomlinson is in the player pool. He's only $200. If he does get called up from the practice squad, then you could look to him as a cheap play just because not only are they missing Mark Andrews, but they're also going to be missing Willie Snead, who's been their most consistent receiver this year. It's not been Hollywood Brown. He's kind of been disappointing. He had no catches last week, but definitely without Willie Snead, you're going to see them have to change up some of their work at receiver because looking back at week 11, they had Snead played 74%, Brown played 72%. You see a familiar name, Des Bryant, played 54%. I would assume that he will jump into that wide receiver 2 role with Marquise Brown being the first guy, and then you're probably going to see the rookie Duvernay and then Miles Boykin be that third and fourth wide receiver role. But Des Bryant, I like him at 4,800. He's sub 5K, super cheap. It seems to be a good check down option for RG3 this week potentially. Seems to be a guy that they could look towards in the red zone. So definitely looking at Des Bryant at only 4,800, especially with that Willie Snead. And then I think you could look at the cheap tight end, whoever they call up at $200. That's another cheap play if you want to pay up at captain. And I do like RG3 as well. But looking at the Pittsburgh side now, Roethlisberger is 17-1. He's at home this year. He's been pretty similar in his home road splits, averaging 21 fantasy points at home. Against Baltimore recently, it was a pretty high-scoring game, but that was when Baltimore was all healthy. In Week 8, both teams the Steelers just continue to keep winning. The Ravens have kind of fell off after their hot start, but definitely like Big Ben at home, and he's going to be able to put up points. They're currently implied for 26 points against this Ravens defense, so he looks strong as a captain or in the flex. And then the receivers, the Draftkings kind of priced them how I would. Deontay Johnson at the top, then Claypool, then Juju. I like Deontay Johnson the most just because he has shown the highest ceiling. He's been Big Ben's favorite target. I know Claypool's gotten all the touchdowns, but Deontay Johnson has gotten 16, 11, 10 targets the last 3 games. Claypool still that big play threat for Big Ben, but I think Deontay Johnson is still the first guy, then Claypool, then Juju. I would definitely try to get Deontay Johnson and Claypool before I go towards Smith-Schuster. And then Connor is out for this game, so you see Benny Snell priced at 7,800 or 8,800. He's going to be their number 1 running back, so got to give him some love. The Steelers' defense is priced up to 7,800. That can pay off, but that is super expensive for a defense. You're going to need a defensive score, probably. You're going to need some sacks, which definitely can happen against this very banged up Ravens offense, but I still feel like I might try to side with some of the offensive pieces before I plug in a $7,800 defense. Like, I think you could go to Eric Ebron, has similar, probably has more upside. Well, usually a tight end has more upside, but I think Ebron has looked more upside at $1,000 cheaper than a defense. He has gotten double digits in like 4 out of 5 games. He's gotten into the end zone in 3 of 4, getting good targets a game 6 to 7, especially with how stacked they are at wide receiver. So I think he makes some sense as a cheap receiver or a cheap wide tight end play that you compare with Big Ben. And then you have the kickers. I prefer Boswell just because they're implied for more points, but you can't argue with taking a shot on Justin Tucker, who's $3,800, and we know the Ravens uh, playing with a new quarterback this week. If they're not able to really push the ball into the end zone, could settle for field goals. So I think you could definitely look at both kickers, but I would give the first edge to Boswell, just depending on if you have salary, then you can go to Tucker, or don't have enough salary for Boswell. And that's pretty much it. You could look at McFarland Jr. to get some backup work for the Steelers at running back, but there's no cheap Steeler that I'm really interested in. If you need some cheap plays, you could look at the Ravens, just because they're very, very banged up on the offensive side. So looking at some potential builds here, I think you could look at one where you do plug RG3 in at captain. It's going to be pretty different because nobody's going to really feel comfortable with it, and I definitely don't. But he's only 12.6 in the captain spot. Other similar captains, like you're getting $4,000 or over $4,500 savings from Big Ben at captain. You're saving thousands of dollars then from playing Deontay Johnson at captain or Claypool. So I think RG3 at captain is still a pretty good play just because he's cheap. It'll allow you to plug in Ben Roethlisberger, who I definitely want to have in my lineup. In the flex, pair him with maybe Deontay Johnson. You have 5,200 left now. You could still plug in another target for Ben Roethlisberger, and I do like Eric Ebron at only 6,600. And then you could look at, maybe go with Justin Tucker at 3,800 and hope that the Ravens settle for some field goals and not able to push the ball into the end zone. But that's one way to go. Another way to go is maybe to go with Deontay Johnson at captain. Definitely paying a lot for him, but I definitely has shown that ceiling this year. Still want to get Ben Roethlisberger in there. I still would like to get RG3 in at 8,400. Then we're down to 4,600 left. If the Ravens do call up Tomlinson at $200, and he's going to be their best or number one tight end, who knows who they're going to call up, and DraftKings still hasn't added some tight ends to their player pool. But if it is Tomlinson, he'll allow you to get up to like a Benny Snell at 8,800 and feel pretty good about going with a 3-3 stack. And then the 3 Ravens that you do get are RG3 with Dez Bryant, who all 3 of them are super cheap, and then Tomlinson if he does become that number one tight end for them with all the injuries that they're facing. If you want to go super contrarian, I guess you could maybe look at one where you do plug like a Dez Bryant in at captain. Hopefully, hope that he can catch a touchdown, or maybe plug in like Ebron at captain at 60 or at like 90 something salary. Is $9,900 salary. We'll look at that too. But if you do plug Dez Bryant in, you're going to be able to pay up for everybody that you want. Ben Roethlisberger, Deontay Johnson, still get in RG3. 6,100 left. You can go cheap with like a Boswell, and then go up to try to get to, like, if you want to play the Steelers defense, you could do that, or you could go even cheaper and hope that like Miles Boykin gets more work at only 1,800, which he definitely will get more snaps this week with Willie Snead out, and then with them missing Mark Andrews, so Boykin at 1,800, and then you can go up for Claypool. So you stack Big Ben with both of his top wide receivers and Johnson and Claypool, and then you get RG3 paired with his weapons in Boykin and Dez Bryant. But I feel pretty good about going with maybe like an RG3 at captain, I think at 12.6. Just safe. It's pretty safe to go with a quarterback at captain. Obviously, it could go really wrong against this Pittsburgh defense, but I definitely would rather go to RG3 at captain and still get my Ben Roethlisberger, Deontay Johnson, and then Dez Bryant, who I feel pretty good about this week at only 4,800. So that's kind of the look that I'm looking at for DraftKings. Let's go over to Fanduel. All right, on Fanduel at MVP, no surprise, Big Ben is 16,000. We do have RG3 priced up to 14.5, so pretty big difference there. Then he is compared to his DraftKings salary. Deontay Johnson checks in at 13.5. Claypool 11.5. And then we still have, like, you could look at Marquise Brown at 10,000, but I do like Des Bryant a little bit more, only 7,500. Probably a lot more. Just hopefully he's probably going to get like 70-80% of the work this week with no Willie Snead. And then FanDuel has Luke Wilson in their player pool. DraftKings doesn't, so probably going to be Luke Wilson or Tomlinson at tight end for the Ravens this week. You don't really need to go that route on FanDuel, but if Luke Wilson happens to be $200 on DraftKings, he would be somewhat appealing. But looking at like some potential build, I think on FanDuel, you don't have to worry about paying extra for your captain. So plug in Big Ben, I think, is probably the way to go. Pair him with maybe Deontay Johnson. Still get RG3 in there. Maybe you want to pair him with a weapon for sure, and that probably will be like Des Bryant, who's only less 7,500. And then we leave you with 8,500 left. We just miss out on getting to Eric Ebron, who looks to be a pretty solid play at only $9,000. So just miss out on him. If you want to, you might be forced to maybe instead of Johnson go to Claypool and just save some money on the table just to be somewhat different. You're going to miss out on Benny Snell as well. You could play Benny Snell instead of Claypool if you feel better about that. But I do like Claypool as a second guy besides Deontay Johnson. I'll see if there's nobody at 10.5 that we can go up towards. And then I definitely still like Des Bryant at $9,000. You could look at maybe try to get to Boswell, but the way to get to Boswell is take Ebron out, put in Boswell, and then put in Deontay Johnson at 13.5. You're using all your salary. It probably will be duplicated by quite a bit, so I think if you want to be somewhat different, you could play Claypool on FanDuel, especially with FanDuel weighing touchdowns more heavily because it's you only get half a point for a catch instead of 1 point, and you don't get the 100-yard bonuses. So Claypool is probably a similar play to Deontay Johnson. Johnson is still better, but with the way FanDuel scoring is, you could go to that route and then play like Ebron and just save some money just to be somewhat different. So that's kind of it for the video. I think this slate is pretty interesting, especially with the Ravens, all the injuries. We'll wait and see if the running backs will be good to go and who they're going to play at tight end. So keep an eye out for that. But without anything concrete in that department, just not exactly sure. Nobody's sure right now where to go, but keep an eye on that. Schefter will probably tweet something out. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and best of luck tomorrow.